The Aipa Big Boy Sting by Surf Tech in HD Fusion. The best mid-length I have ever surfed. And I cannot overstate that. What is that? Is that a guy over 200 pounds who's on an 8-foot or an 8-foot board and he's going to crank this serious vertical off the lip? Is that even possible with an 80-liter board? Yes, it is. So this is the Shredding Hippie, and as if you've been following my channel, I've kind of backed off because I'm done trying to find that short board, that fat short board. I can remember when I think I was 52. I'm 59 now. I can remember when I was 52 and I went to my local surf shaper and I had him shape me a 6'2" board that was like 3.5 inches thick, and I tried surfing it and it was like trying to surf on a cork. It just, the thing just wouldn't do anything. It just, since then up until recently, I've been trying to find the right board for, a 205 pound, almost 60-year-old guy. I know how to surf, but catching the waves and, getting up to my feet as quick as I used to, it's not the same. Trust me, you get older, you're going to find out. But thankfully, Ben Aipa has saved the day for me. And his sons have come together and are putting together this amazing board. I love the outline of it. Everywhere I go, people look at it, it gets stares, especially bigger guys. Like if I see somebody that's, Polynesian, a big Polynesian guy, every now and then I'll run into them on the beach and they'll go, "What is that board? What is that?" "Oh, it's Aipa." And, they can tell just by looking at it. A lot of people who ride the smaller boards, they don't know what to make of this giant 80-liter board. The thing, here's the reality of it. I'm not the only guy my age and older who still surf. Still a lot of guys out there doing what I used to do. They can get away with it because they're not as heavy as I am. But the other day I went out and this guy was coming back from the beach and I asked him, "How was it?" And he said, the sandbars, this and that. And he looks at my board and he goes, "You got the right board." And I got to the beach and the waves were fine. They were awesome. Yeah, they were sandbars and there were some mushy sections. And, the fact of the matter is just he's in denial. He's probably 170 pounds or something. So he thinks he needs this tiny little board. He thinks, that a mid-length is a 6'10" or something like that. And he's not catching waves because he's too old. And the waves are too mushy. He's not a kid anymore. I understand the denial. And I had just given up and I was riding my, the board that I had decided to surf, as a short board was an 8.6 Shopper butter knife, which is an awesome board, but it's not a short board. It's a mini longboard. But this guy here, I first came aware of this when I bought the Big Brother Sting because I wanted a longboard, a high performance longboard. And of course, if I'm going to go longboard, I'm going to go as much volume as I can. And that thing surfed like a shortboard, and I was so excited to surf again. So I had to get this guy. Now I was going to get the 8-foot because, I want to get as short as possible, and 8.4 is pretty long, and that's the biggest that they make. But they didn't have an 8-foot. So I would have had to wait a long time to get an 8-foot. They had an 8.4 in stock, so I went ahead and got it. The first day that I took it out, I was doing this kind of stuff. Again, it got me so excited. So why does this board work so well? Well, first, just looking at the outline. So Same thing with the Big Brother Sting. It's pretty much identical, except it's got a narrow pulled in nose, narrow in quotes, and it's got that same rear part of the board where the Sting goes way up. Looks like it's almost a third of the way up the board, probably, maybe easily a third of the way up the board. And then we look at the bottom contours. Sorry. Look at the bottom contours here on the left. Let's blow those up a little bit. So first, let's look at this part. So we've got this low entry rocker, which, if you surfed in the 90s like I did, back when I was in my early 30s and I was tearing it up on these, the Elf boot. Remember the Elf boot boards where they just had no volume and the nose was so pointy and there was so much nose rocker, it was like riding an Elf boot. Well, so when I look at something this flat, I think it's going to purl, but it doesn't. It keeps the majority of the volume in the water so that when you're paddling, the wave wants to pick you up. And low tail rocker, that's interesting, because how is a low tail rocker board going to give you the looseness that you want? Well, it's these, the combination of the Sting that goes a third of the way up the board and all of the stuff that's going on underneath. So here you can see there's a rolled V in the nose, a blended roll, which is a belly in the nose, and then a rolled V in the middle of the board. And then under the foot you've got V. You don't have double concave. That's very important. You have a V. And then that V continues all the way out the tail. That's how the low tail rocker works, because this board is designed to pivot, like this. It's designed to do that with the reduced amount of board in the tail. You step on the tail, then it's going to want to go straight up and down. Good news is, though, because it's big enough and there's enough volume, you can trim on it. You want to longboard it, you can. You could probably easily, depending on how much you weigh and what's going on with the wave, if it's got enough, steepness to it, you could probably easily do a cheater 5 off the end. And if we look over here again on the nose has a tapered rail. The center, you get this sharper down rail, and then of course the tail, you have this sharp rail. So the release of this board is phenomenal. Now, I have been experimenting with all different kinds of boards. One of the things that I do if I go someplace like here in Australia, I'll go and I'll look for a local shaper, because local shapers know what the waves are like. If you come in just with an average board you got off the rack, that pop out, very likely, there's going to be something about it that isn't right. But these boards, the thing, when you get to bigger boards, you want to get rid of all of the, all of the mayhem type boards. You want to get rid of the deep concave, the deep double V. You want to get rid of that, because unless you're surfing something like, France, or you're surfing, El Porto, or, some kind of, like slamming steep beach break, pipeline, something like that. Unless you're surfing something like that, those contours, the deep concaves, if you don't have enough water going underneath to lift that big board up, if it's got a lot of volume, then it's going to trash can lid. I've learned that the hard way. So now I don't even look for that stuff. I don't look for V double or double concave. I don't look for any of that crap. I look for V. I look for belly in the nose, and I look for V, because that's what's going to make the board pivot like that. And it ends up working well if the waves are steep. That works great because the V digs in the side, and you can just get right up into the side of the wave and curl. You can get a high line with a V, with a big V in the board. And it also does great if it starts to mush out, because then you can turn on it. It's what makes it loose. It's the perfect combination. So yes, before I get into the fin setup, which I have up here, this is the fin setup that I'm using, which now I know is the perfect fin setup. This guy is without a doubt the best. You know what? Here's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, forget about your longboard unless you want one. Forget about your Funboard. Forget about your shortboard. Forget about your mid-length. Forget about all of them. This board right here is my all-around board. No matter what is going on, that board will work. Now, the only downside, it's, you know, at 8'4", it's 80 liters. At 8 foot, it's 75 liters. The downside of that is you are not going to duck dive. So you better hope that if there's, you know, if it's head high or above, these boards love bigger waves. Again, this was developed and, you know, perfected in Hawaiian conditions. So, you know, when the waves are head high or bigger, I know I'm going to get in the wave early and this board will tear it up. The more wave there is, the more water going underneath those wings, it's just going to, you know, people like, I had one guy who was out there, it was probably, you know, chest high. And I had my Aipa out there with the new fin set up, and I was, you know, it's 8'4", and I was taking off and I was doing these you know, these slashing cutbacks, and as if I was on a shortboard. I was doing the exact same maneuvers as if I was on a shortboard. And yet when it got into the section, I could hop up to the nose and get, you know, inside, get a little head barrel and all that. And there was a guy on the beach and he's like, pumping his fist at me, you know, and this is an old guy on an 8'4", supposedly, you know, mid-length board, and somebody is on the beach like stoked, look at that guy tearing it up. So I am not exaggerating when I tell you this board can do everything. Now, you look underneath, I love this. I've been looking for these boards. I used to try and get guys to shape these boards. But, you know, unless you are one of us, unless you're an older, heavier guy who knows how to surf but needs the volume and needs the stability, they look down on you. They can't help it because they're riding these little tiny little sticks, and they don't understand that, you know, there's a way to make bigger volume boards that shred. But the only way they're going to know that is if they need that. They're not going to figure out how to shape it. They just shape whatever for everybody. So, you know, the last thing I was surfing on, which was nice, was this little, you know, 52 liter, 8 foot quad fin Funboard that had, you know, a big V double going all the way down the bottom, which loosened it up. It was a fun board, but I would spin it out. You know, I would fade back into a bigger wave and I'd dig the tail because I love tearing it up, and that fin would just come flying out, and I'd go face first on the front of the wave. I would come up and I would, you know, go vertical, and I'd hit the lip, and the board would go because it was this, you know, this 8 foot flat, you know, board. It wasn't meant for that. This board will handle whatever I want to do to it, but I'm not going to be able to duck dive it. So you better have a way out. Let's talk about the fins. So the fin setup, I've tried it all different ways. I've tried it as normal quad with normal quads, and it was okay. It was a little bit stiff for me. I've tried it as a twin fin, and I've tried it as a 2+1. The twin fin was interesting, but I'd spin it out. It would track a little bit because it would want to go from one rail to the other like that. And it would track if the waves, you know, if there was a lot of wave underneath, I'd have to have my feet in just the right spot. And if I was on smaller waves and I was really digging in a hardcore cutback, you know, the fin would pop out. And, you know, it looked cool, but I don't like that feeling. So I was trying to figure out what to do. And at first I thought, you know, this is the twin fin setup here, the Mark Richards twin fin. I was trying to figure out what to do with the rear trailers because I thought if I just get, you know, I was going to get a little nubster or something, but what I did is I just went into the local surf shop and I said, can you give me a small Performer rear quad trailers? I figured, what have I got to lose? It'll work, might be a little stiff, but that's what did it. It actually loosened it up, made it looser. It didn't track so much, and it would make the turns tighter, but it would make them faster. When you turn super tight, you'd pick up speed. So I was like, oh my God, I found it. I've now got my shortboard. What amazes me is that it's an 8.4 and it's 80 liters. And it is so huge, I have to have there's a little thing called the claw here, which is a little plastic thing that you put on the side of the board, and it's a handle so you can carry, big longboard and stuff like that. So that's what I do. I have my little handle, and people look at me and they see me, I've got an old man, I've got my hat on and I've got my face paint on and I'm completely covered up because I'm old, I don't want to get skin cancer. So they think, oh, here comes this old man, look at that kind of, older, bigger guy. Oh, good for him, he's still surfing. And then I paddle out, after I've caught my breath, and so get out in the lineup. And the look on their face after they see me riding this thing, you can tell, there's like, what is that guy doing? How is that possible? And I get the respect that, of course, us gray-haired guys should be getting out in the water. In any case, that's my review. Don't even think about it. Do not even think about it. This, made in the SurfTech HD Fusion. You've got the lightness of those boards. You've got the strength of those boards. I wouldn't want to surf this in a poly. It would be too heavy. I'm sure it would surf great, don't get me wrong, but it would be too heavy to carry, and it wouldn't be quite as responsive. These things are light, they're strong, they're made extremely well. I've dropped it numerous times with zero. I'm not saying go do that, but I've been it's huge, so I've been fondling around with it in the parking lot and bang, bang. I've dropped it a couple of times with zero problems. And find the fin setup. My suggestion is get the Mark Richards twin fin. Take the little center nub out. Don't put that in, and put in rear small Performer trailer fins. Trust me, you will be happy you did that. It will surf so well, and it will surf so fast and so loose. I couldn't be happier. I mean, for the past 10 years, I have really been struggling, trying to get, that feeling again that you had when you were surfing those shortboards. And, now this board will surf anything. If it's slow and mushy, it'll surf it. If it's big and hollow, it'll surf it. Especially if it's big, you know how hard it is. You'll be that guy out there that's going to be paddling into all the waves that nobody else is going to be able to get into. And on top of it, you're going to be able to surf it. You're going to get in early, you're going to get slotted, and you're going to have a blast. So don't even think about it. I'm going to do this. Get rid of your mini longboards. Get rid of your Funboards. Get rid of your mid-length. Get rid of your shortboards unless you can handle them. Stick with the Big Boy Sting at whatever size you want. Don't be afraid to go big in the volume, because as the shapers say, this board will surf the equivalent of a board 1.5 foot shorter. This board, the one that I have, is an 8.4, and it surfs as if I've got a high performance, 7-foot board. And I've had some really good 7-foot boards that were super radical. This one will surf just like that. So enjoy, have fun, and there you go. That's it. That's my review. All right. I'll probably see you guys in another few years. I have no need to make a review. I've got my quiver consists of the Big Brother Sting longboard, which I take out even on head high good days, and I still have a blast on it. And my Big Boy Sting, and both of them will work in any conditions. So that's my quiver. I can't imagine myself changing, except the only thing I would do is I would get a bigger longboard for those really small point days. That would be the only reason to get another board for me. That's it. I wish you guys all the best. Thank you to the Aipa family for saving I'm tearing up, for saving my surfing career. At 60 years old, I no longer have to just settle. I can go and have as much fun as I did when I was in my 20s. Thank you, Ben Aipa, for spending decades perfecting this and leaving this legacy for your family to give to guys like me that have been frothing over the Aipa shapes since I was in high school. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's it. See you guys next time.